I think the benefit of featuring these characters, all six of them, in a series is that we get to accelerate, we get to take people who have shined in small blips and accelerate the audience's relationship with them in a way that it took maybe 10 years of Marvel movies for you to get to know each of those Avengers in a very human way. We're doing that in 6 hours straight. And it builds a, I think it's going to build a very intense bond and very intense relationship between the fans and these characters. I think the compelling thing about Sam and Bucky's relationship is that it is tethered to the most important character in the Marvel universe, right? Which is Captain America. And that relationship is now thrown into a crucible because Cap is gone. On a more profound level, as these two men who have kind of like we've associated with each other and they've been in all kinds of battles together and they had that iconic moment in Civil War, and they have a chemistry, more importantly, that makes fans feel like they know each other well. But with Steve gone, with Cap gone, what they're both realizing is we don't know each other well at all. We had a mutual best friend in common. In fact, I don't even know if we like each other.
And also with Cap's decision to give him the shield.
That was Sam's personal struggles just at his home life and dealing with the shield was the thing I was most excited to be to write. It just felt supremely relevant to the times where you have this Black man who is dealing with the stars and stripes, and his reaction to it is appropriate for a Black man, which is to push it away and have ambivalence, because that symbol without Steve does not mean the same thing to Sam, right? That symbol without Steve means oppression and adversity. And when you meet Sam at home, his roots are so deep in a Black experience. He comes from a long line of Black fishermen, which there's been documentaries about them and how they were treated by the banks and how society treated them. So he has an entire identity that dictates a reaction that we would have been dishonest if he had just said, "Oh yeah, great, I'm gonna be Cap," and not challenged it. I also think the personal story to me was exciting because it was so rooted in culture that it gives Sam a flavor that I feel like really makes him relatable to regular people. Like you get to see him doing cooking and doing the kinds of things that real people do. And you get to see him feel uncomfortable when the police come. And we don't go crazy with it in that moment. You get to see him experience the world as a Black man from the South. When the series begins, Bucky, we like to say this series began and each of the characters knocked on the door. We let them in. They walked in with their bags and put them down, right? When Bucky knocked on the door, there was a truck full of baggage. And that baggage has accumulated in all these Marvel movies and with all this Marvel mythology of a man who's been manipulated. He's 106 years old. And because he's been manipulated, he doesn't belong to any given era, least of all this era. He's killed so many people. And the fact that he remembers every one of the murders makes him believe a part of himself was the Winter Soldier. And so you take all of that and the fact that he doesn't have any family left, and the only person who ever truly accepted him for who he was, Steve, is gone. And we were like, it's such an immense thing for this kid, for this guy to tackle, that we needed to come up with a storyline that was all of that baggage concentrated into one character, that if Bucky could not find a way to make amends with him, he's going to fail as a human being. And if Bucky can find a way to be brave enough to confront this, even if the person does not accept it, he has a shot at being reborn as a human being who's not a monster and not what all that baggage says he is.
Overall strategy.
The 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 chemistry that Sebastian and Anthony, or Sam and Bucky, have was there's a moment everybody who's a Marvel fan remembers in Civil War when the two of them are in the car. Can you move the seat forward? No, I hate. And in 12 seconds, everybody knew, from Kevin Feige to fans all around the world, that these two had something special. And it's crazy to think that in 12 seconds, what these two men were able to do was so electric that everybody who worked on this project knew exactly what the tone had to be, because it's just something that's sort of it's transcendent what those two guys have together, and it dictated everything moving forward. And the buddy cop, I think one of the great things about the history of sort of buddy two-handers is that buddy two-handers have a long legacy of tackling issues of the moment and doing it in a way that's still fun for the audience while being honest and not shying away from very, very relevant and sometimes hard-hitting topics. But it's always digestible because it has this, sort of electric back and forth fire and ice dynamic. When we meet John Walker, he has been the most decorated soldier maybe in U.S. history. And his expectation is that if he continues being excellent, he will inevitably become a hero like the men and women he always set his sights on. But that expectation is born from a bit of privilege and a bit of arrogance, and his journey is going to be fraught and reshape him completely by the time it's done. When we meet Sharon Carter, the funnest thing to do was to go back, watch Civil War, and imagine what this woman has had to do to survive all these years. And the Sharon Carter who walks through the door in this series is very, very different than the Sharon you saw before. She still looks super young. She still has that baby face. She still looks innocent, which makes it a little bit more striking when you start to see the edge and the habits and the attributes and the thorns she's picked up having to hustle since breaking the Sokovian Accords. And I think the best way to describe it is Sharon in this series is very, very grown up and very, very complicated. When we meet Zemo, I don't know if we can say where he's at. Well, we know where he's at, literally. He's in prison, and he's been in a capsule, and he's still unsatisfied with the fact that heroes levitated his city, slammed it into his country, and killed his family and everyone else, right? And he's been unable to pursue what he believes is his life mission, which is to dispatch heroes, because in his mind, hero is the same as supremacy. And there's no room for supremacists on this planet. So Zemo would tell you, I'm the real hero in this series because I'm getting rid of the kind of people who do more damage than they do good.